Hey everybody, welcome to Ref Time, powered by RTS and produced by Coraggio Media. I'm Tanya.
And I'm Crane. We'll be covering rules, plays, points of emphasis, and all things official. It's the great Clark Hamilton, none other than. How you doing today, Clark?
I'm blessed and highly favored.
Man, I'm so glad we finally got you on. I've been looking forward to this. I've been hounding you. Oh, yeah. Now we get to,
payback.
I've been hounding you for the last month trying to get you on. And, we're going to get to that story about how we got involved.
Okay.
Welcome to the show, man. We're glad to have you. This is
Welcome.
Ref Time.
Well, thank you.
And, this
Thank
show
you.
is for officials, with officials, about officials, all things official.
Right.
This is what we do.
Well, let me first say that I'm really pleased that you and Tanya together have asked me and invited me to participate, because I think you're doing a tremendous job of trying to do some of the things that, as you know, we've been trying to do for quite some time. So,
Absolutely.
again, I really appreciate the job and hope that it turns out well in all respects.
It's been
thank you.
turning out well for the last 11 years.
Well, I tell you, sometimes it takes that long to get people on board.
Oh, here we
Yeah.
go again. All right, let's go ahead and get to it. Let's talk
All right.
about how you got me involved.
No. We don't care about how you got involved.
Well-
we want to know how Mr. Hamilton
Well,
got involved.
we want to know more. Yeah,
First of all,
yeah.
so-
You can dog me later.
So,
Okay.
so why did you get involved? When? How many sports did you officiate? Because I know you did more than just basketball. So,
Yes, I started officiating probably back in 1970 as a result of a job that I worked through the Harrisburg area YMCA programs. Like most YMCAs have basketball programs.
mm-hmm.
The problem is they like to have the leagues, but nobody would come to officiate because they were scared. And again, most of the officials that were in the area were white, and they had fear of coming into an inner city area. Even though we wanted the programs to exist, there needed to be somebody there to help govern and make sure that the players were trying to play by some kind of guidelines that would offer them a good chance to work out. Well, I took it upon myself to, if nobody else is going to do it, let me try to do the best I can. So out of necessity, I just started blowing the whistle. And I have to remind you that I wasn't the person that was truly familiar with the guidelines that basketball provides. And as you know, if you've been in basketball officiating, there are a whole lot of rules that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a rookie. I'll be the first one to say that. But it's something that the players respected the job that I tried to do, even though they knew that I was the only one in town, basically. So I started doing it then as a result of not enough officials, and continued on through.
Now, which Y were you at when you first came to Fort Wayne and started?
I was with the Harrisburg area YMCA.
Oh, but you were telling me that you came to Fort Wayne shortly after that.
Yes,
Okay.
I stayed with the Harrisburg area YMCA for 3 years. Interesting story if you'd like to hear it.
We have a little time. Go ahead.
Okay. In most cities, they have city championships.
Mm-hmm.
And our team happened to be one of the top teams in the city. So it was like down back street playing uptown. And so the guy who was instrumental in providing the city playoffs had the tournament and the game. Well, same situation. When the teams got there, no officials. So he says, Clark, here's the situation. We don't have any officials, and we need somebody to try to do it. He said, can you help? I said, listen, here I am in my street clothes, leather shoes, and you want me to officiate? I don't have a problem with that, but I'll just try to help you and do the best I can. And the first thing I did was I called both teams together and said, fellas, listen, we don't have any officials, and most of you know me because you've played ball at the Y and all through the city. So I'll try to do the best job that I can. And let me say this, if I have any stuff out of you, you're going to go. That was the first thing that I asked of them. And the game went down to the point where the first official that I ejected was from my team.
You mean the first player? You said
First,
the first
I'm
player.
sorry.
Yeah.
The first player that I ejected was from my team.
Now, I got to ask you something.
Yes, sir.
Were you licensed? Were you a licensed official at that point?
No, I was not.
Oh, wow.
No, I was not.
And they still listened.
Because of the officiating that I did at the Y. We had skilled players, players that had played some college ball, and high school players.
Okay.
And so they accepted me as an administrator on the court.
Now, were you still playing the game at that point?
Oh, yeah, man.
Now, see, that's one of the hardest things there is, to be able to officiate but still play with your peers and officiate them. That's hard to do.
Right. Well, the thing about it is that my job came first. I didn't play as much as I used to, but nonetheless, they knew that when I got on the court, I was competitive.
Okay.
Because one thing that I could do was play defense.
Yeah.
And so they respected that, and seeing that I could play. As a matter of fact, one of the players that played out in this region was a guy from Harrisburg that went to Michigan State. His name was Julius McCoy. He's a left-handed player, about 6'6", from Harrisburg, and he was a big-time scorer. So, but I say that to say that I think I got the players' respect just because of my involvement in the sport, and I was only one of a few.
So at what point did you become licensed to be an official?
Well, unfortunately, when I came to Fort Wayne, we still had the same problem. All the leagues that wanted to develop, and no officials that wanted to come into an area where they felt safe. So as a result of that, there were about 4 of us professionals at the YMCA. I said, listen, guys, you know what we have here. We have some talented ball players, and I feel that we need to do something to try to develop the interest of people into this avocation. So I got together. There was about 5 of us, Jim Jones, Jim Winters, couple other people that I don't recall their names. So we all got our license at the same time.
Now, 2 things. When you guys started officiating back then, all the officials that you pulled together, all the guys that you pulled together, these 5 to become officials, they were all black?
Yes.
And so you're saying back then, this was back in the mid-70s?
I got here in 74.
So in the mid-70s, you're saying that most of the basketball officials who were licensed in the area were white.
Most of them. The only exception that everybody knew was Tom Knox.
Okay.
And there was another gentleman that I recall what his name is right now, but of the officials who were black, there was only 2 that were licensed and were doing games that you would recognize as high school, college. Tom played officiated in the pros, so he had some kind of recognition, but nobody seemed to want to follow.
Now this was back during the time of 2-person officiating for basketball, correct?
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now was trying to think of this other guy's name. I don't recall his name right now. But you said Jim Winters was one.
Jim Winters,
Jim Jones.
Jim Jones, myself.
Okay.
Another guy that worked at the YMCA.
Now, Jim Winters, he's still around, isn't he?
He's still around, but I don't think Jim has been licensed since the first year he got a license. So,
wow.
So one and done for him, huh?
Just about, because he had other responsibilities.
So you got involved out of need.
Out of necessity, right.
And there were people in the black community who wanted to get leagues going and such, and they just couldn't find officials who would call the game. So that's the reason you got involved? I
got involved because of that very reason. And it was a shame that we couldn't pull other persons on board. As a result of that, I'd like to maybe even mention where I had some other involvement in the city. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Recognizing that fact, I also had the vision that officiating was work. And I went to the schools. I wrote letters to Snyder and Northside High School to try to see if we could get some people licensed and involved in sports officiating and give them some opportunities to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I received some nonchalant, we don't want to do, we're not going to do this. And so I had a problem with not providing reasonable employment to people who would represent the city of Fort Wayne. Because when you look at high schools, they've got freshmen, they've got reserve, they've got varsity, junior varsity. When you take that across the whole city, that's what, 8 or 9 schools? Can you imagine the number of games that you would have to have officials for? And the ones that you got were probably the same ones.
Now, I'm curious then, why would the schools not be responsive to that? Because back then there was a need.
Well, there's been a need all along.
True.
But I don't think they wanted to be put in a position that would maybe not have the support of administrators. You know how administrators do. We don't want to do this.
Yeah, but the thing is, like you said, you'd be training young people for a vocation that they could do part-time, spare time, some full-time.
Well,
and that's what the schools are supposed to be about.
You would think. But I wasn't so much into the training then. I was just trying to let them recognize the fact that, hey, these are jobs that I think that could be offered to minorities.
Okay.
And I think my approach probably wasn't the best because it was denied and nobody wanted to pursue it.
Well, you know, what's ironic is Tanya and I were just on a conference call last night with an association, and we were trying to call that association earlier, MSOH maybe. But anyway, they do these Zoom calls now across the state, probably across the country. So back in the day when you had to attend a certain number of meetings to get tournament, well, now they're doing them through Zoom, which is a lot more convenient.
Right.
And we had one of the commissioners on last night as a guest speaker, and he was talking about this very thing, and he said that the IHSAA has started a formal training system that is within high schools across the state. And there's about I think he said a little over 500 kids or maybe a little under 500 kids that are involved in this program, which is impressive. But I'll be honest, what I was sitting there thinking is, how come they didn't do this a long time ago?
There you go. You
because,
hit the spot, right.
Well, the need for officiating is so high in every state across the country.
Exactly.
And Tanya and I have always been advocates of training young people. I mean, that's how we met. We were both working with youth organizations. So we've always been about training, development, and education. I didn't understand why somebody didn't think of something that simple. Now, what you did, because you're the one that got me and Tanya involved. Matter of fact, you probably got a lot of refs in town involved, and all we're doing is basically we're catapulting on what you already started. We'll talk about that a little later. But I just never understood why people didn't use this. Then again, there's a lot of trades that the schools don't promote. I think most education is promoting college, so that's probably why.
Well, let me also say this. Even our local association should have recognized the fact and be more instrumental in trying to procure officials and train, and the lack of officials in the minority community. They didn't do it. I felt that we dropped the ball in that, and I felt that the association really didn't meet the needs of trying to provide training and assistance to people who may have been interested in trying to learn how to officiate.
Yeah. I don't think either one of us would disagree with that. We've seen the same. Now, I participated on our board. I was a board member a few years ago, and as far as representation, I was only black on the board. I don't know if there's ever been any other blacks on the board.
I've been on there.
Okay, so there obviously were other numbers. When I was there was never anybody, but I'm not sure there was an interest either. It probably was an interest, but they just didn't know how to go about getting involved. And then there was no female representation. There's been no female representation on our board
since Sue Ross.
And how long ago was that?
Ooh, mercy. Sue Ross was a spectacular volleyball official.
Okay.
That was her claim to fame.
Okay.
And that's the only one that I'm familiar with.
Is she still around?
I'm not sure.
And she
I'm
was
not
in
sure.
Fort Wayne?
She was in Fort Wayne.
And she was part of our board.
She was part of, wait a second, let me back up. She may have been part of the board, but she was instrumental as being a highly recognized official. If she wasn't on the board, should have been on the board.
How you spell her last name? R-A-W?
R-O-S-S.
R-O.
Ross.
Sue Ross.
R-O-S-S?
Yes.
Oh, Ross. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said Ross.
Mhm.
Ross. Well, I will definitely see if I can find Miss Ross. We'd love to have her on, too.
Right.
Talk about the way things used to be and
Oh, yeah.
how they've evolved.
Mhm.
So I want to know, what was one of your most memorable career highlights?
Being licensed in several sports for many years, I probably have a couple. I will say this, that when I started officiating and trying to develop a schedule, there were some concerns about how long it would take to get a varsity contract. Many of these contracts were spent out over 3, 4, 5 years before you get a contract.
Mhm.
You know? And I remember that. In order for me to develop a schedule, I had to go outside the city, travel all
Yep.
over the place.
That hasn't changed.
In order to try to get a decent schedule.
That has not changed.
Right. In
Still-
order to
still
try.
doing it.
Right. And let me say this, that, and I have to commend this school for doing it. Dick Krause was the athletic director at Bishop Dwenger High School. And I developed a relationship with Bishop Dwenger because of one of their girls basketball coaches in Mike Scudder with my summer program that I started years ago. Dick, after speaking with Clark, hey, I've got a schedule for you in 4 years. Well, hey, no problem. I'll accept it because it might take me that long to be able to get it. But in the meantime, I wasn't just going to sit back on my laurels and try to get a schedule established.
Right. So you were willing to travel to get
So
some varsity matches.
Yes, and it seemed like I was more readily acceptable outside the city, and so I developed a schedule. And then once you get that notoriety, I was, hey, he's doing games outside. Why can't we, then the games came a little easier.
Well, you know what the word says, Clark. No man is, what is it? No man
No
Yeah,
man's
the-
an island. Is that
no
it?
Profit in his
my
own.
prophet in his own land.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, that's the word.
Right.
And so that only goes without saying. And when we train new officials, we tell them, if you can't get what you need here, get in your car and go.
Right.
Well, and we actually were just talking to a young black female official last night.
Yep.
And she said, she's gone down to Indianapolis. They're giving her boys and girls varsity. She can't even get a varsity here in Fort
Exactly.
Wayne.
Boys or girls.
Right.
And Tanya's been
That's
reffing, 15?
15 years.
That's
and
a
she
shame.
can't get a boys varsity in this
That's
area.
a shame.
It
Yep.
is, but that's just the area.
Yeah.
So you got to go outside the area to get treated fairly, I guess.
Right. But getting back to some memorable occasions, as a result of finally getting an opportunity to come inside the city and officiate SAC primarily, but New Haven, Homestead, all those other schools gave me contracts. Back when Northrop and who else? I don't know, with the South Side. Anyway, they had the Holiday Classic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Man, that was fun time, the
I'll
Holiday
tell you what.
Classic.
Yes.
I had a overtime game that lasted 5 overtimes. 5 over,
I was
you know,
trained by the best.
I was in, I liked the game, and of course, it was it went so smoothly,
Mm-hmm.
because any team had the opportunity to win.
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't you win it in 4 quarters?
Right.
Now you got to go 5. Come on, my endurance is only so much.
And you're not getting paid per quarter.
Exactly.
And that's one thing I always quote you on. Whenever I'm training new officials, I say, look, our job is to make sure each team has an equal opportunity to win the game.
Right.
And she looked at me funny when you said 5 overtimes because I had a 5 overtime game.
Oh,
so
man.
I was trained by the best.
Right.
Yep.
Right. But and the thing about it, you leave the game and you just look back and say, man,
Yeah.
that was a good game.
Yes.
The players won it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just there to watch it and
Yeah.
make sure that it went smoothly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was one highlight.
That's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Another highlight that I had was I officiated NISOA, was the National Intercollegiate Soccer Officials Association. I refereed collegiate soccer for 27 years. And as a result of that, I was able to get an NCAA tournament game. So that was the highlight of my career.
You said collegiate soccer for 27 years?
27 years because there were two gentlemen that were in our officials associating. And back when I started officiating soccer, the need for soccer officials was enormous.
It still is.
So
I can't get her into it. She won't do soccer.
It's outdoors.
Right.
They have indoor soccer. I keep telling you that.
They do.
I know.
Mike Freck, who was a realtor, and Don Shadnagle, who was a school teacher at Southside High School.
Never met those gentlemen.
I tell you what, they were nice people.
And they were phenomenal soccer officials?
What happened was both of them had played soccer in college a little bit, okay? And they approached me, both of them said, Clark, hey, listen, we need soccer officials. And we're asking you if you might be interested to come join, get some training, and go. I said, okay, no problem. And with the need being so great, I could get soccer officials every day, or soccer games every day, collegiate games every day. And so, but the thing about it was the training. Not knowing a lot about soccer, there were NA, National Association of Soccer Training, whatever, NASL. And they held these training programs down at DePaul University. And I went down there, and what happens where they bring in 4 different colleges to have scrimmages, and we'd referee them and be critiqued by national referees. And so that was crucial to my development and my confidence. And I say that training in all aspects of these sports officiating officials is crucial. And in order for me, I always wanted to be better in order to be accepted, okay? So I attended, I don't know how many training programs that were offered for officials. I said that's where I met Valentine and Bova, and it got my name out there. And when it came to that officiating that tournament, I never will forget the person who recommended me was the coach of DePaul University. His name was Paige Cotton. So you had to get the recommendation of a college coach in order to be considered.
You know, I'm glad you said that, what you said about the training and how important that is. That's one reason that we started referee training school. But, you know, I just got to tell this story. I know Tanya's telling me not to talk too much, but I got to tell this story. And you and I were talking about it on the way here. And I didn't tell you all of it, but the training that I got, you're right, it is imperative that you get that kind of training. I remember out at Carroll High School. Back when it wasn't the Mad Ants. What was the team then? The Perfect Pro team here in town, prior to being the Mad Ants. Fury.
Yep.
The Fort Wayne Fury.
Right.
And the Fury had a camp. Walter Jordan did a Fury camp out at Carroll, and he would have. Fury was sponsoring it, and then he'd bring in officials, and then you guys would bring us in as new officials. And I remember I was out there training, scared to death. I was a deer in the headlights, and you and Dave Gentili pulled me aside. You pulled a few of us into this room. It was, I guess, the dance room with the dance girls, whatever they did at the high school. And they had all these mirrors up in that dance room. And I remember you pulled us in there, and you and Gentili were standing. You were on one side of me, Gentili's on the other side, and you guys had me facing the mirror.
And I thought you had Vernon Meeks doing that too.
Vernon Meeks trained me a little bit, but Vernon trained me more during the games, on the court.
Yeah.
But Clark and Dave, and we're going to ask Dave to come on the show soon too, you guys had me in front of that mirror, and I remember you guys were standing on either side of me like drill sergeants, yelling in my ear, blow your whistle, tweet, blow your damn whistle, tweet, raise your hand in here, tweet. And you guys were just standing there drilling me over and over and over. And I remember going out of that room, going into the court, and it's exactly what you said. I had more confidence because you guys put that loving drilling.
It was the confidence level. And not only that, it was the representation of a group of men who were trying to reach another level. And if you've reached a level, when you step out on the court, you can just surmise that there might be some problems that erupt, but I'm going to be able to handle them.
Yep.
I've got the confidence. Now, there are some situations, timing, that type of thing, and other little idiosyncrasies that might come along.
But you picked that up in time.
Right, right.
You always used to train us to go get that alligator skin.
Right.
And that's where you get that alligator skins. You got to go out to AAU, or you got to go out to these tournaments like that and let these people ride you.
Well, let me say this, too. If I had any success in officiating, especially in basketball, it was all of the independent basketball players that cursed me out and made it difficult.
Yeah.
And I still tried to maintain and stand strong.
Oh,
so for all those independent ball players that had me to officiate the game, I want to say thank you. I want to say
for
thank you.
cursing you out,
because yes.
I think I might have cursed you out when you came at me about becoming an official.
You still may be.
Man. But we were talking about before the show. One thing about Clark, you were always the perfect gentleman. I remember when you first came at me, Mr. Hearn, I'd like to approach you with an opportunity here, sir. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, there's an opportunity for you to become an official. I didn't know what an official was. All I knew is ref. Okay, and I was like, what are you talking about? Well, you have the opportunity to join us in a very elite sport. And I'm like, dude, would you speak English? You talk pretty, but I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And then you explained to me that it was a ref. And as soon as I heard ref, I was like, no. And I think I might have cursed you out.
Oh, you may have.
But
you wouldn't be the only one.
But you kept approaching me.
Right.
You just kept coming back. And finally you said to me one time, Mr. Hearn, this will be the last time I approach you for this very lucrative opportunity. I knew what the word lucrative meant.
Right.
And when you said that, I was like, what you talking about, Clark?
Right.
Plus, you were talking about leaving me alone. I was like, I don't know what this man wants, but if he's going to leave me alone, it must be something important.
Well,
and that's how I think it's how most of us got involved.
Well, I don't think it. He didn't have to approach me that many times.
You weren't that stubborn.
I wasn't that hard-headed.
I was pretty hard-headed.
Yeah.
But the thing about it, the several of the officials that have gone through the training programs that I tried to establish benefited from personal experience of going with me to officiate a varsity game.
I did. Okay. Yep.
Because if I got called by an athletic director who would say, Clark, I'd like you to work this game, bring somebody with you, then that offered me the opportunity of, okay, you're in the line of fire right now. This is your first opportunity.
Alligator skin.
To show what you can do. Okay, to show what you can do.
And that's still, again, two-person officiating.
Yes.
Two-person officiating,
Yes.
right. But so it wasn't just to come on in.
Yeah.
Let me try to be there to assist you. And the sky was the limit as far as you wanted to take it.
I remember you introduced me to Vernon Meeks.
Right.
And you had told me that you were kind of grooming Vernon Meeks and you were mentoring him. And then you introduced me to the game. And I tell you, the highlight of, now that I remember, and the highlight of my career was you sent me up to Gary. No, East Chicago.
Was it East Chicago or Michigan City?
It was East Chicago.
Okay.
And it was a game in the wintertime, and the snow was crazy, and you were telling me to go up there because you couldn't make it, and I was taking your place, and you had me meeting your partner who was coming out of Indianapolis. I don't remember his name. And I'm on my way to getting there, and I'm getting there really, really early, and I'm excited because I'm like, oh man, this is it. I made it big time. I'm varsity in Michigan City or wherever, East Chicago, and I get up there, Clark. And the guy that was supposed to come from Indianapolis couldn't make it.
Okay.
And then I ended up working with a scared to death JV official.
Oh, wow.
Now you got somebody who's green that you're looking at right now, and I'm working with a little JV official because he had to stick around. And I remember it was the whole crowd was black. It was standing room only. These people, it was so thick in there that people were sitting on the stairs. The fire marshal was at the top saying, if we let any more people here, we're going to shut the place down. I think that was just a farce. They were welcoming people into that place.
Right.
I mean, it was so every time this team would score, it was like a deafening sound.
Exactly.
And this ear would be completely shut down by all the noise. And then this team was scoring. It was like that. And I remember this guy, that young kid I was working with, scared. I walked up to him. He was looking at me like, I don't know what I got myself into. And he had stayed to do the varsity game because we didn't have anybody else.
Exactly.
But you talk about a hair-raising experience that just, threw me in the cold water. That woke me up to what officiating was all about.
Well, and it must have worked out well because you stuck with it.
I'm almost 30 years, and that's because, you welcome. And, I want to give credence to the fact that you had the training going on in Fort Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else was recruiting officials and training officials like you were through the Parks and Rec.
I really was. That was something that I really wanted to work toward.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned earlier, we didn't have anybody.
Right.
And we needed to have some visibility. And even though I trained a number of officials, I didn't hardly touch the amount that we needed to show that we are instrumental in trying to do the jobs that are out there and could do them effectively. But we didn't have the representation.
But you trained a lot of officials, black and white.
Right.
I can name a lot of guys you trained.
Right.
Didn't you train Jerry Stiglitz?
Jerry came to the program.
One of my favorite refs.
Jerry went to the state finals.
What's Bob Childers?
Bob Childers.
You trained him. John Pfeiffer.
Pfeiffer. Yeah.
Now you didn't train. We were talking about him. What is his name? The guy we were talking about when we were riding here.
Dave Gentili?
No, you didn't train Dave, did you?
No.
And you didn't train, who was the other guy that, he was very well known, shorter guy, he moved down to Florida. Judd Raver?
No.
Judd.
You and Judd kind of came through it together, right? Y'all came through the mud together.
Yeah, Judd was out there before I got here.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But there's a lot of officials in town that you train who are like household names now.
Yeah.
Can you think of some others that you trained?
My dementia is starting to.
Did you have anything to do with Mike Johnson?
Mike Johnson.
You trained Mike?
Him?
Mike. The thing about Mike wanted to get there real quick.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that's another story.
Yeah.
But Mike came to the class. He got the basics.
Now, what's interesting about Mike is his son Joey is now officiating.
Okay.
So that's second generation.
Right.
Yep.
Well,
we actually work a game with Mike coming up.
Yeah,
well, we're
next
supposed
week.
to. We'll see if he shows up.
He'll be there.
Right. Well, here's let's talk about generations of people. We've had some successful referees who come out here, especially the Interline family.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing about it is that when I had this program in the summer, that Brian's son was officiating the program, and he would tell his son, "Hey, get with Clark, get with Clark." And I'm glad that he had that opportunity because I would take the time and show him. I saw a young person who had some ability, and a buddy who wanted to see that happen. So, as I understand, he's become quite an official and inspired.
Yeah, he is,
and is reaching the top of his profession.
I think a lot of people, young and old, don't realize that this profession is just like any other industry. And if you have somebody who works hard to go as high as they can, and then they have offspring who come through them, just the influence that person's success will have and rub off on their offspring will make their offspring better. We've seen that in our daughter.
Right.
Our daughter is trying to go MBA. I shouldn't say trying. She's very close.
Right. It makes the path a lot easier.
It does.
Because the contacts have already been established.
Yes.
And especially if you reach a level and I commend Brian for all he's done.
Yeah,
he and I were running neck to neck, and I was glad to be close. But I have a lot of respect for his opportunities that have come his way, and he's been in it a long time.
And Brian's he's a great mentor and a great recruiter as well. Brian actually talked to us a few years ago, and he approached me, says, Crane, if you want to go up in this on the women's side, women's college, you can do it. I was like, really? And I asked him, at that time what his income was. It was ridiculous, double 6 figures easy.
Right.
And he said, but the catch to this, I said, there's a catch. He goes, the catch is I only see my house probably 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I was like, wow. And he goes, so what are you thinking? I said, well, we got a young daughter, and I don't want to be an absentee father. He goes, that's wise. He said, because in this industry, you would have to be an absentee father. And I was like, oh, man. So I had to choose between 6 figures or staying around and raising my daughter. And I was like, well, we got to take care of our daughter.
Right.
But
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wanted to mention that when people sometimes reach a pinnacle, that they don't share their experiences or at least mention the opportunities and how to get there with their assistance. I mean, when you years back, a major Big Ten official was Gary Muncy.
I remember that name.
And you would see Gary every now and then, but I don't see so many that have reached there and then want to reach down and pull somebody up.
Yeah, and I think with us, we haven't. Like I said, we could have pursued that with Brian, but we didn't. And I don't think that we reached the pinnacle of where we could be, but we're doing what you did, and we're reaching back. By the way, your school or training, did you have a name for it, a formal name?
No.
Okay, you just did it with the Parks and Rec at that time?
Basically.
Okay.
Basically. And it expanded. I did a couple training programs up in Elkhart. So, again, it was a matter of somebody approaching me who may have come from Elkhart down here to one of our programs and then saying, hey, can you do it here? And the program was easy to move. It just took me and a couple more volunteers to be able to develop the program. So that's how I worked it.
Well, I want to switch subjects real quick here, because one of the areas we didn't get a chance to talk about is rules back in the day.
Okay.
And I know that the rules have changed quite a bit since you started training me almost 30 years ago. But what was back then? What was a rule for you that was kind of a stickler? You were known for it, or I know you used to tell me all the time, "Well, Crane, I'm known. I let them play." I remember you say that all the time.
Yeah.
But was there any particular rules that were hardcore for you, and they were kind of stickler? You were known for certain rules.
Like he's known for the carry dribble.
Well, I used to be known for I don't call it as much as
Let's
Clark
be
and I
real.
have talked about
I'm
that.
sorry. Let's be real. When they see Crane walk in the gym,
You got that.
used to be is not what comes to mind.
And believe me, Tanya, I've talked to them on a couple of times about, and Tanya, this is what I've come up with. Tanya, Crane, if you're zeroing in on catching the carry, then you're missing the game.
Come on, Clark. All
right.
I don't miss the game.
Okay, all right. I'm just
That's
saying.
part of the game.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Well, look here.
Okay. Let me just say this.
No
As
time for
far
you to defend yourself here.
as far as me, I don't think I had any kind of Clark is known as, but
You didn't have any
Clark-
pet peeves?
none that I can remember. The only thing that I would
I remember
tell the
playing
player-
under your whistle, though, and I remember
Okay.
some stuff you used to call on
Will
me
you let
that
him
wasn't
finish?
there.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Well, here's the other thing with that. I might have missed it. I might have missed it.
I heard that on a regular basis.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, Crane. I missed it.
Okay.
Come on.
Okay. But the thing about it is that I think when you go into a situation where you see the players and you can attest to their talent level, that you have to set some guidelines on what you need to look for. For example, when you go into a high school that has 3 Division I players, 6'9", one of the things that you need to be concentrating on, okay, Clark, You're going to have to look above the rim.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are one of the things to try to take a goal away from or give one. That's one of the things. If you've got the players, again, at that level who are big and strong, I think for the most part you can set the tone by saying, hey fellas, you know, I'm going to be watching some of this stuff. Just give me a break. And allowing them to play and hope that, again, each team can play to the best of their ability and that each team has the opportunity to win.
Well, now, you guys been picking on me, but Tanya has a pet peeve.
Tanya.
I'm sorry.
Back in the day, this pet peeve wasn't a thing back then.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's jewelry.
Oh.
You know, and I think that's been around
It's
for
not
a
only
while.
jewelry.
I mean, jewelry is the main thing.
What's the other main thing?
It's not a main thing, but tucking in their jerseys.
Oh,
know.
Mercy.
Part of the rules to have your jersey tucked in.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Tanya,
So-
let me address that. Okay.
Hold on.
Okay.
No. You don't get to defend yourself, remember?
Okay.
Let him go. Get her, Clark.
Tanya, I had a game down at Muncie Central. The player that I'm going to talk about went on to play with Portland. He played ball at Ball State. And when the rules came out, you had these shirts that would go down in their shorts, but these guys were so tall, it'd come out all the time. They're constantly doing that.
Right.
Right.
And so I think the rule is good, but how much effect does it have on the game? If you ask yourself that question, to me, you can say, well, you know, man, it's a rule. It's a rule. And I'm going to try to enforce it as best I can.
Mm-hmm.
And but to harp on it, well, this guy, I forget what his name is, but the coach, hey, his shirt's out. You know, he'd shoot the ball. He'd come out of his shirt would come out every now and then when it happened. Hey, man, get your shirt in if you can. Okay.
That's pretty much how I address it
Right.
anymore.
Right.
Mm.
I mean-
Jewelry, I have more of a concern of because it's something that's going to hurt you.
It's a safety thing.
Right, it's a safety thing.
Yeah.
So I would probably say that that would be something that I would try to stay on top of, even in the introduction of the players at courtside. You know, hey guys, make sure that all your jewelry is off, rings, that type of thing. But to put yourself into the game at the very beginning and then constantly harp of it. Sometimes, now I'm saying it's in defense of myself, Tanya. Sometimes we nitpick, and just like I used to talk to Crane about it. Basketball is so quick and so fast that it's changing, and so I think. Another thing that I used to say all the time, you got the rule book. Sometimes you got to take that rule book, know it, and then you got to bend it. Okay. And then you got to bend it, you know. And so consequently, you try to, as I said before, we have to be administrators on the court. We have to give the players and the coaches an opportunity to play the game that any one of these teams has an equal opportunity to win. As administrators on the court, we have to be knowledgeable. We have to be in shape. And we have to make decisions, good, bad, or indifferent, just like that.
Yes.
And sometimes, Crane, as you know, we miss them.
Yep.
So
I know because you missed a lot.
Probably.
You missed me getting fouled quite a bit.
Gosh.
Anyway, moving on. The rule book. Do you remember the old rule book called, I guess the guys called it the funny book, the illustration book?
Yeah, the illustration book where we have the different situations explained in a visual.
Yes.
Do you have any of those old books sitting around?
Probably not.
Man, I want to get my hands on one of those old books because those things are really cool. I wish they still printed those.
Yeah, you could probably contact the IHSA. They'd probably give it to you for a small fee.
Yeah, I might have to do that because I remember those. But yeah, you're absolutely right about officiating. Basketball, anyway. It's one of the fastest sports, And I heard somebody say the other night, and it made a lot of sense. He goes, basketball is a very emotional sport, very emotional.
Because you're so close.
Yeah, you're so close proximity.
Yeah.
And it's a contact sport. I remember you taught me that. You said, Crane, it's a contact sport. All contact is not a foul.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
So I remember a lot of and then Vernon Meeks. He passed away a few years ago, but Vernon was I think Vernon might have been even a little younger than me at the time, but he was a great mentor for me. He taught me a lot about presence on the court, how to carry myself, how to be in an authority position without being too hard on people.
Right.
But yeah, I really learned a lot being under people like him.
Right.
And
He went through the program too.
Yes. Yeah. Him and you and Dave Gentility and Stiglitz and Jerry Stiglitz and even we mentioned him earlier, the guy in Florida. I always forget his name.
Judd Raver.
Judd Raver. Judd, when I played under him, I thought he was a butthole. But then as I got more progressed in officiating, I began to see why Judd communicated some of the ways he did. He did a lot of what they call it, industrial basketball.
Right.
And so that's a different
that
animal.
demeanor is exactly.
Completely different animal.
But it gives you that hard skin, that
Yeah,
alligator.
that alligator skin.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
I need to mention this one more time as officials start to get into training and they think that they can go through the different levels of, especially high school, relatively quickly. And so they try to posture with ADs, and ADs might have an opening, and then they say, well, if you can get somebody that you can officiate with, who have you officiated with? Clark Hamilton. Well, if you get Clark, you got the game. Okay. And I've tried to stay away from that kind of situation unless I feel good about it. You know, when you got a game like Warsaw and like, let's say, South Bend Clay, where you have different cultures coming together, you want to feel good that the person that you're working with has the right kind of mentality that you do as far as allowing the game to play and not to interject yourself.
Correct.
You know,
Unnecessarily.
Right.
You've had that situation?
No, I'm saying so you don't interject yourself unnecessarily.
Exactly.
And I think Tanya and I working together, we have that, especially if we allow Sydney to come involved too, because she brings that younger piece who loves to sprint like a gazelle up and down the court and pass everybody.
And you guys can stop and rest for a minute.
But
hey, man, I did a game the other night. Let me tell you.
I want to watch her game. It was
I did a game the other night. It was nothing for 2 hours sprinting.
It was a
up
women's
and down,
college game.
Women's college game, up and down the court for 2 hours.
It was at Indiana
These girls
Tech.
did
They
not
had a
stop.
tournament. But check this out. The team that she had, the coach, and I talked to the Indiana Tech coach, they played them the next night, and I said, this substitution style this coach has. She goes, oh, she does that all the time.
She would
The
sub
coach
every 30, 40 seconds.
Five in.
5 in, 5 out.
Yeah, every 30, 40 seconds.
Make it fresh.
Ran that team to death.
Okay.
And beat them.
Yeah.
Ended up beating them. The other team was ahead of them 15, 20 points a couple of different times, and they'd let that other team come back.
Because the first 2 quarters, them girls couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. I mean, they shot probably 10 air balls. I'm like, this team cannot shoot.
Didn't matter.
Last half of the third quarter, fourth quarter, shot the lights out.
Yep.
Like, wow.
Before we get too far along, let me say this to both of you. What you're pursuing right now is a good thing. It is something that I wish was available a long time ago. And when you got something that's pretty good, you're going to have those people who are going to be jealous of what you're doing because they know it's something that has some promise, but they didn't get a chance to do it. So, and I think that you're going to have success from it because you're going about the right way. And I wish you much success in your venture because it can do nothing but elevate the different sports that you're going to incorporate, and that everybody who participates with an open mind will know that this is something that's going to be beneficial to them as being a sports referee. So again, I'm glad that you're taking on this venture, and much success. Really mean it to both of you.
We
Thank you.
appreciate that. As a matter of fact, on that note, we actually have a class coming up. You can go to callcrane.com, get registered. The class is going to start January 2nd. So.
Yeah, and that will be a basketball class, but we're also thinking about a volleyball class. We haven't put that together yet, but so far, Clark, over the last 11, almost 12 years, we've trained people in basketball and volleyball.
Yes.
The sports we're looking at picking up, wheelchair basketball, we've done that. We've also done girls lacrosse, which Tanya wants nothing else to do with that because it's an outdoor sport. She doesn't do outdoors. I love
because
soccer.
of the time of year. It's during the spring.
It's January, March, and April is their
Yeah,
primary
it's crazy.
season.
There's
yeah.
still snow and sleet.
Yeah,
and,
Indiana's thawing out at that time.
Well, let me just, on that note, I had a game at Valparaiso, a soccer match. There were 3.5 inches of snow on the ground, and the ball would go, stop, go, stop. But when you start talking about interesting opportunities, as you know, there aren't a lot of soccer referees. But I had the occasion.
He's trying to recruit us into soccer, isn't
No,
he?
I'm just saying.
Not
I
happening.
had the occasion to work it was the NCCAA tournament down at Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 referees were black, which is something unheard of
Yeah,
Right.
especially back then.
back then.
Yeah.
Back then.
Nowadays, you see it more. I think that the door has opened up more to blacks as well as females. This area is still a little
Needs
behind.
some work.
Yeah, and we're working on that. But
Right.
instead of worrying about changing the minds and hearts of people, we just are doing, what you're talking about. We just decided we go ahead and just start building it because there's, the people that are in this area, it's just not a priority to them for whatever reason, and that's fine.
And you might have to have them voice their desire. Hey, Crane, and if you get 5, 6, 7, 8, then you make an effort to go get a couple more and start the class. It's showing you that there's some desire out there, and soccer officials we need. I'm just glad I had the opportunity to work in it as long as I did.
Well, great. Well, I'm really glad that we had a chance to have you on. We're going to go ahead and get ready to wrap up, but are there any last comments or advice you want to give? Anything, Clark?
The only advice I would say is that there's a lot of opportunities out there, a lot of games that need to be refereed.
Amen.
And the more people that we have that can go through a training program to get acclimated to some of the skills that are necessary to work these matches and learn the rules, that we as trainers and referees are going to be a lot more knowledgeable about the sports that we referee. And not only that, the love that you have for these. Clark, how are you in soccer? Man, I love soccer because I saw some real good soccer players in my time, and I had the opportunity to officiate just about every college here in Indiana. And so it was a blessing. It was a blessing that somebody recognized in me, like that Mike Freck and Don Shanagel said, hey, Clark, would you be interested? And I'm glad they came to me. And so just like Crane and Tanya are trying to reach out to you, there's a need. Try to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I appreciate that because you're right. There's a huge need, and we are working to fill it. So with that, we want to thank you all for joining us another.
Much.
Yeah, thank you, Clark, for joining us for another Ref Time show, and we'll be probably following up on some of these folks you mentioned. See if we can get some other old school up in here.
Yeah.
Well, good. That would be nice.
That would be great.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Take care. Thanks again for listening to Ref Time, powered by RefTrainingschool.com and Hoosier3on3.com. Produced by Coraggio Media. Ref Time is recorded in WELT Studios in beautiful downtown Fort Wayne, Indiana.
To join RTS, visit reftrainingschool.com. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Until next time.